to the cloud.
Hi and welcome. I'm Stella.
And I'm Jessi.
And we are Stella Luna Yoga School. And today we are having a live conversation about how to live your yoga off of the mat. So if we can start, if you would join me, you can reach your arms up over your head or not, bringing your hands into your heart and the corners of your mouth up towards your ears. With infinite gratitude, thank you for being here today. Thank you to Wankatonka, to the Great Spirit, to all that is and ever was, to the one with 10,000 names, the one with no name, to all of divine creation, to Divine Father and to Divine Mother, to Krishna and all Christ frequencies, to Holy Mother Mary, to Kuan Yin, and to the womb of this earth, Panchamama Gaya, to the four-leggeds, the two-leggeds, the creepers and crawlers, the flyers. Thank you for connecting and protecting us. Thank you for bless these sweet souls that have shown up today. Bless those who are here in spirit. Thank you for allowing us to live our truth, to be kind and content. Thank you for this opportunity to share your wisdom and knowledge. May we be conduits for this blessed energy of love and light. And so it is. And it is so. Aho. Aho, Ashe, Amen, Shalom, Shalom, Aloha.
Oh,
Sat Nam and Namaste. We'll take a big inhale and Om together. Cool. Thank you. We have arrived where everything is perfect and whole and complete, exactly as it is, nothing to heal and nothing to fix. So this is like our favorite thing to talk about, which is why we talk about it all day, every day for, over 15 years over here in this corner. So thank you all for being a part of this and for showing up for yourselves and for everyone that you will be touching in your lives. How to live your yoga is the Yamas and the Niyamas. So those are the first two tenets of what yoga is. So yoga on your mat is 1/8 or 12.5% of this 8-limbed path.
and the 8-limb path is outlined in the Yoga Sutras, right? Yoga Sutras were written by Patanjali. And that was the Patanjali is the group of people or the guy person that wrote things down and put it into the Yoga Sutras. And so that's where we get these 8 limbs of yoga. And asana, the movement on your yoga mat, is 1/8. And today we're talking about 2 other limbs.
We're talking about part 1 and 2.
Yeah.
What's cool about these 8 limbs is you don't have to do them in order. They do work well when you do them in order, but there are no have-tos, coulda, wouldas, or shouldas in yoga, which is why we love it so much. Okay.
Yeah, they're all branches, all 8 limbs are branches of the same tree. Right? So we we want all the branches to really grow a nice, strong tree. And that tree is living a fulfilled life. Spiritual enlightenment. It's yoga. That tree is yoga. It's living your yoga. And the yamas and the niyamas are observances, codes, ethics, things that we can apply into our relationship here in this human body on this human planet with others, with the world, and then also with ourselves.
And speaking of relationships, hi, I'm Stella, as you know that, and Jessi, and our relationship and how we've been coming together to teach this. We've been together for, I don't know what year it is.
About 10 years.
About 10 years of working together and doing this. So I am was a yoga studio owner. I am an intuitive empath, Reiki healer, a psychic. I work with plant medicines, Kambo practitioner, and present as a yoga teacher in this lifetime. I'm also a doula and realtor if you want to have a baby or sell a house. And I met Jessi.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did yoga teacher training at her studio 10 years ago. And then I never left. And now we have our own yoga teacher training. And I am a Pilates instructor, a strength coach, a massage therapist. And I really help people, connect to their cores through functional movement.
And we've had to apply a lot of how to live your yoga off of the mat together to be able to work together. We really think very, very differently, and we actually move in our bodies very, very differently. So I hope that is, and it is an asset to all of you. So if I'm saying something that you don't quite get, Jessi can probably explain it to you, and vice versa.
And vice versa,
yeah. Because we're just very different. And the first precept, are you ready? Is Ahimsa, or how to be kind.
Well, we're going to talk about the Yamas first. And the Yamas are these moral codes. The Yama means like harness or restraints that we want to apply in our relationship with others and in the world around us. So there are 5 Yamas, and then there are 5 Niyamas, but we're going to start with the Yamas. So these are restraints, codes.
They're how to deal with the outside world.
Yeah, how to deal with the outside world.
The world is chaotic, and it's always going to be chaos. That's just how it is in the human experience and what we signed up for. So we signed a sacred contract to be human, which is possibly the most important gift that we all got. It's 1 in 4 trillion that you got here. It is a freaking miracle. And number one, to remember that, right? That being human is a gift itself, because there's nothing out there in the universe and all the galaxies and dimensions, and I have traveled many of them. And there's nothing out there like us, right? Like nothing out there like us. So this is like how we can look at this world, this what's going through, especially relevant today in 2022 with what's happening in our world for the last couple of years, as the precipice for change in a really, really big way. And these yoga principles really are not a luxury anymore, right? Which is why, even though this practice is 15,000 years old, that in the last 30 years, it's really come to us, and why so many more people are like, oh yeah, I do yoga, and that's a part of like our regular life, right?
It's a necessity now.
Yeah, because in order to create a new earth, in order to create a different than what we've been doing, because what we've been doing has not been working, it's going to shift and sort itself. So this is how to be able to keep your peace and calm in the chaos always, right? Because just sitting down to meditation, like that sounds great and can be rather elusive, right? When our busy lives, when I'm like working and I've got kids and a job and a car and like all this stuff going on all the time, and people in my ear, and that, box programming us all of the time. Yeah. So the Yamas.
So the first, I like that. That was good. That was good. The first Yama is Ahimsa. Ahimsa is how to be kind. It's really making non-harming a priority, making that a restraint you want to make in life, to not harm yourself, not harm others or other beings.
Today I got a text from someone, and I was like, oh, right? Like, my first thing was like a little contraction when I read it. And, there's part of me that wants to be like, say one thing, and to take a moment and to really understand if that was my truth, right? Number one, was that really my truth? Did I want to react in that way? And then being able to understand that really my truth didn't want to say that, right? Or react that way, because not only would that be harmful possibly or perceived harmfully by that person, but also to myself, right? Because it's not really the truth of it, right? The truth of it is something totally different. But this is like, especially in this fast pace, like, oh, here's a text, like throw it back and forth. Like I can just like say this right back because that's what I thought, right? And how I can apply like being kind, but really being kind to myself because of the snowball effect that that would have. Not that anything, like, I don't even mean anything like quote unquote bad. I don't believe in good or bad anyway, but like, it wasn't going to even be a big deal. Right. But just like when I really like took a moment and sort of restructured myself, I was like, oh, I could respond like this. I could respond not at all. Ahimsa, is without, him is harm. So we translate that to be kind, right? Instead of older school, like don't do any harm, like, right? Like we're really conscious about how we speak. Part of what we teach is conscious communication. So consciously communicating, like being kind instead of
do not harm. Right? Yeah. Because I think also these are not commandments. These aren't commandments that we're sent down from a high, and if you don't follow, you're bad. Right? These are more of just how to live so you can be happy. Right? Like really, so be kind. And I think also ahimsa, be kind, kindness is a huge part of it is, and what Stella was just saying, is acknowledging that there is a power in your words, there's power in your actions, there's power in your thoughts. And so be a little, instead of being reactive, yield a little bit and really think about the words you choose. You don't need not reacting, acknowledge that there's power in everything you put out there.
Everything. And that's what yoga is, right? Yoga is to yoke or to unite or to yield to the outer world, the inner world, right? And even, what was I going to say? More than, I lost my thought.
And as we acknowledge the power of our words, our actions, our thoughts, really like eliminating the brutality between us. It's not like prey and predator. And how can we start to be kind to each other? Ahimsa. And also there's an amount of strength that comes from ahimsa. I think sometimes there is, ahimsa can feel very like, oh, be kind. Some people practice ahimsa. I didn't mean it like that. That was not kind. I apologize. But sometimes ahimsa, some people practice ahimsa by not eating meat. Like that's an example of an ahimsa practice. Right? I'm not going to eat meat because eating animals and those are other beings. And, that is the way some people choose to practice ahimsa. And I think also a practice of ahimsa is having this like fearlessness or this strength to choose to be kind instead of be reactive. Right? Now you have a new purpose, and it is to be kind and compassionate, to come from a compassionate place rather than a reactive, attacking place. And there's a strength that comes with that.
And you can practice any one of these for the rest of your life. Like you could literally choose ahimsa. You got something, Jessi? Yeah, say it, JB.
Just talking about these things and putting out kindness and compassion and love and how not to hurt people is we have to have it internalized, because you can't give something that you don't have. So if you're going to be kind to somebody, you have to be kind in order to offer words of kindness. And that being said, is what I'm getting from what you're saying is you have to build that internal strength so you don't get hurt by what other people say, because the only one that hurts you is you when people say things, right? The sticks and stones thing, just like when we talk to people, whether we hurt them or not, I like to think that I don't hurt anybody's feelings necessarily. They hurt their own feelings by what I say, by whether they misinterpret what I'm saying, or if I'm trying to be hurtful. People have said some terrible things to me in my life. And a lot of times I'd let it roll off my back. And then some people have said some things sometimes that were, that hurt me, then they didn't mean to be. So it wasn't like they're trying to be hurtful and things, but I'm in charge of my destiny and how I feel about things. And so ergo that if we're going to be kind and saying kind words, we have to be kind and have a clear heart ourselves and have that strength too. So I just talked full circle about everything that we just talked about. So
Yeah,
100%.
love that.
It's 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's just my views on it and how I think about it.
People that are hurting, right, hurt other people.
Mm-hmm.
Period, right? If you're not hurting, you don't have any reason to hurt someone else, and you're not going to do that as a byproduct. It's just not going to happen, because if you are centered within yourself and your heart, and you're living from your heart space, then you're not then you're not going to hurt others, because it's not residing within your own being and your own heart.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I always say, oh, I'm protected by white light, like nothing can hurt me, because I'm so like clean in myself that like nothing is going to attract to me, right? That would be potentially harmful, because this is not how I am. And I'm a magical realist. I do understand that there are things out there. And it doesn't mean not to be cautious, and it doesn't mean not to spiritually bypass. So that's the other thing, right? Is that we can really get caught up in like, oh, I'm love and light and everything's awesome and I don't hurt anything, so nothing can hurt me. And we're not talking about spiritually bypassing things and overlooking them, which we'll get to more later in the next in this conversation, right? It doesn't mean that we don't have hard conversations, but hard conversations can definitely be had from a place of kindness and gentle. I had a hard conversation the other day, and I was like, like in the middle of it, I just stopped and was like, like I'm really proud of us. We're having a really hard conversation, and we're both doing really, really well. Like how we're having this hard conversation. Like, right? Like we have hard conversations, and that's like part of the relationship with others, is being able to do that, right? Without causing harm. Like, how can I say this in the kindest way possible, and still be heard? And that leads us to our next one.
Yeah.
Unless somebody else in the
Ahimsa? Anybody else have a
comment, question, concern, shout out?
And next one is Satya. Satya.
Satya.
Satya.
Sat means truth. It also opens the third chakra, so the solar plexus chakra.
Manipura.
Or the solar plexus. The thing about speaking our truth is that everyone's truth is different. And so there is only one truth. And the one truth is that all of our truth is different, right? And it doesn't matter. I often say, like, when teaching asana, that I took my right shoulder and my left shoulder. We went to the same places. We have the same friends. We ate the same food. And my right shoulder has a very different opinion about our life than my left shoulder has, right? And that's like a way for us to be reminded every day, because we all have like shifts in different sides of our bodies when we're practicing on the mat. that like, even though we sat at the same fire and we looked at the same thing and we were both there, like the story can be told very, very differently. And that is the truth. That's what the truth is. And when we can then practice ahimsa with our satya, so that we can recognize that the one truth is that our truths are all different.
Yeah, and satya helps with this element of being able to discern truth, the what is kind. You can kind of level, against each other. Is my truth, and then I look at ahimsa, like, am I coming from kindness, compassion, or am I coming from frustration and judgment? Right. So satya, kind of discerning, and with satya, there's a sense of, the yogic practice, the yoga way of life is living with this curious, like always wanting to learn, right? You're kind of living life with the intention of discovery, curiosity, so that you can figure out what's your truth, what's true for you. And so as you live your life, you can have that sense of clarity of, choosing that truth, speaking that truth.
And again, like going back to like how we're responding to things, right? When we're coming from our hearts, oftentimes, or what a phrase that I love to say is that the space between the head and the heart, the 17 inches between the head and the heart, is the longest journey that we'll ever always take. Right? So like being able to speak through our truth from our heart and not from our head, right? When we're actually living heart-centered kindness, right, is often different than the quick text that I want to send from my head, right? Because that actually isn't my truth, right? My truth is something deeper inside the well of my heart.
Yeah, the truth is not the reaction. The truth is there's something deeper. And so often we're living from the reaction.
From our heads.
From our heads.
Yeah, we're living in our heads instead of living in our heart.
It's loud where she is.
Got it. I was like,
got it. Got it, girl. Satya.
So satya in yoga, a phrase that we use is Satnam, S-A-T-N-A-M, and that means truth is my name, N-A-M, like name, right? So like when you hear my prayer in the beginning, like I say Satnam, if the truth is my name, meaning that like I'm living a heart-centered life, I'm coming from my heart. I'm coming from my heart, and then speaking from my heart, and that is my truth. So that's why we say Satnam, 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 Satnam as a mantra to remind us to stay in our hearts and to speak our truth from our heart, not from our heads.
And I think like a place to kind of think about this in our everyday life is choosing not to partake in gossip, or so often conversations can be led through kind of hearsay. They said this and that, and it's this conversation that's really gossip. It's not necessarily something that's based in, your own research. And so part of practicing satya is just choosing not to partake in it. And if you're interested in it and you want to do research about it later, whatever that is, doing research about it later, so you can come back with a sense of, instead, like a true, honest, sincere opinion rather than just gossip about it. So that's a way I think of satya. I know that has helped me, in my interactions with others, to just be aware of that, to be aware of, I don't need to just like inject my blab, just to do it, because that would not be truth to me. I'm just have an opinion about something that I don't really know about.
And it's such a big one these days, right? It's such a big one. We all have different truths about our lives, what's happening, we all have a really different opinion about what's going on. And it's really come up a lot lately, right? It's come up a lot for us lately. That's why it's, again, so important, number one, to remember that your truth is just your truth. And where I live in my Stella verse might be very different than where you live in your Jessi verse. And when we can just apply that like loving kindness to each other, it really can make our lives a lot easier. And that is totally the point, right? Is to unschool ourselves from like, life is hard, we have different opinions, and so we're just not going to be friends anymore, or whatever that is. But to be able to come together in harmonious union when we're living in our truths and we're being kind to each other. And yeah,
Satya,
that's what Satya is. So
how to speak truth.
and in the 10 commandments, that would be like, don't tell a lie, right? Because we're going to find some similarities here in that. Our third yama is
Anything else? Any questions about Satya? Speaking truth?
Yeah, because we can just keep talking. Just talk and talk.
Good, okay.
You got a truth? You got a question about your truth?
Test it against Ahimsa. All right, next one.
Asteya,
Asteya.
which is how to get, it's about gratitude and giving thanks. And the truth is that when we come from a place of ultimate abundance, understanding that there is an infinite source of anything that you want, whether that's love or money, right? That there's an infinite source of energy. There's an infinite source of love. There's an infinite source of abundance. And when we come from that place of gratitude, right? It's the big hype word these days, is my gratitude journal and my gratitude list and my gratitude to everything, right? But when you embody it, and that's great. I'm not knocking like a gratitude list or anything like that. But when we actually embody it all the time, then there's no lack. There's no lack.
So there's no need to steal
Anything.
time, energy.
Right? At all, because there's an infinite source of it. And the concept can kind of be like wildly amazing, but if you're not sure, our country did just print up tons of money, right? So apparently that's infinite. If you can, right? Like it's infinite, like there's not cut off from anything. We really only need a few things in the world anyway. We need companionship, and we need a place to be, and we need some food. And really, other than that, like, we actually don't need much. I'm not saying that I don't like bougie things or don't want to have a luxurious lifestyle, right? But when I come from that space, that I had a teacher that used to say, Eagle Bear used to say, everything that you need is within 6 feet of you, everything that you need. And if we can live from that place of like constantly giving gratitude for everything, all of the pleasure that we feel and all of the pain that we feel, it is from there, right? Then there's no lack. We don't need to steal. We don't need to steal people's time. We understand that like whatever it is on the perfect time for our own soul's journey.
And this is really the basis of manifestation, is when I can be in a place of abundance, non-stealing, then it flows what I want or what I need. It all flows to me. Instead of living, because when I'm living in lack, or in the lack, I don't have enough, there's never enough, the pie is only so big, like you can't manifest there. So this is like the basis of being able to manifest things for your life. JB.
I like to think of trying to be introspective and knowing the difference between needs and want and differentiating between that. And that helps with the understanding of the abundance or overabundance and things like that. Like going from Cambodia coming back from vacation and going to Costco just kind of puts the zap on your head. You talk about, when you talk about abundance or overabundance, it's like, you know, who can eat a 10-pound bag of chocolate covered cherries, you know, when they're starving and things. So knowing what you need and what you want, and if you can differentiate that and try to get that blessing and manifest that, then that'll give you an easier understanding of what you're talking about, or what you're saying and the points you guys are making, which is parallel with, I guess, what I'm saying, just a different viewpoint of it to get a different perspective on the same thing that we're talking about. So like you said earlier, we know everything is the same for all of us in our different truths, how we see things, which is our perspective, and it's just how we see things with our past experiences and things on what's going to be our interpretation of things. But then again, interpreting it how I just did, with knowing the needs and your wants, is just like a really good thing that I've been trying to do my whole adult life, or is I try to be a better person. So just wanted to throw that out there.
I love it.
Yeah, it's all about perception. Ultimately, everything is how we perceive everything, which is why we often say that attitude is the portal. I was reminded recently that like the whole story of like Adam and Eve choosing this apple is really a story about understanding perspective, right? Like, it's not about like Eve did something bad and like they got kicked out of paradise. Like, that's not really the point of the story. The point of the story is actually understanding like the perspective of the story that's being told. I find that it is no longer things, I no longer live my life about what I want. It's a yes or a no. And I get to do things that I don't necessarily want to do. Right? Like, I'm like, I don't know that I really like want to do that, but I'm going to do that right now because it's a yes. And it really helps make things a lot easier, especially like when we're talking about going deep, opening our hearts, speaking my truth. Like, I don't really want to have this conversation right now. Right. But I'm going to have this conversation right now.
And so, and how can we apply asteya, this non-stealing, or this coming from a place of abundance, you know, to our daily life? Something simple like when you call someone on the phone, instead of just going into what you want to talk about, asking them if this is a good time for them. Do they have time to hear what you want to talk about? When you're on your yoga mat, I think a way that we often steal from ourselves is we're in a yoga pose, and instead of trying to force your body, or steal from our bodies in a way, force your body to fit a certain shape, or it should look like that. Instead of just meeting yourself where you're at, meeting your body. If your body was your best friend, you wouldn't force your best friend to try to do that, right? But like your body as a friend, not forcing the pose, not wasting energy, just meeting yourself where you're at, living from a place of right where I am, in this shape, this is where I'm at, and this is okay. Like living from abundance with my own energy and right where I am.
I don't need to get into that pose.
I don't need to get into that pose for, you know, because I lack that pose. It should look like that. I'm in lack because I can't do that. No, you're not. You're in complete abundance. You have everything you need. You're doing it great.
Yeah.
So, and on the yoga mat, you know, this asteya, live from abundance right where you are.
Because if you tell me I can't have something, do you want to know what I want? That thing.
That thing.
If you tell me like, no, Stella, there's no more chocolate for you.
I've tried.
Oh my God. All I want is chocolate. Right. There are actually studies that show like with children that are like feel deprivation, right? If they give them, a huge bag of M&Ms that the kid will eventually, like, they'll eat them all, like they'll eat until they're, don't feel good. Like they'll eat it because they've been deprived from them. And please do not feed your children M&Ms, but we'll just say some candy. You feed them some sugar, some muffins, maybe a muffin. Then eventually, when you get used to having that and there's no deprivation, then they don't need to overconsume anymore. Right? They don't need to overconsume.
Just naturally.
Right. Just naturally, like that urge to need to overconsume is gone. And in the same time, I'm also thinking of something else, remembering that there was also it was a photographer that took like pictures of children all over the world. And going back to JV's, like what he was saying, he took pictures of children all over the world. And the children that had an overabundance of toys didn't ever share with him. They never wanted to play with him or share with him. And the children that only had like one toy all wanted to share because they loved that toy so much and it brought them so much joy that they wanted to share what they had, right? But the children with an overabundance of toys had not one of them asked if he wanted to play.
Asteya.
Give thanks.
Give thanks. Live from gratitude.
Appreciation.
Appreciate what you got.
Yeah. Everybody wants appreciation. Always. Appreciate. I mean, I could keep talking. There's a tool that I use too. One more thing. There's a really cool thing. There's a tool that I use of appreciation. So when, relationships get a little hairy, right? Or you're feeling like, I'm like, oh, you know what? I really appreciate this about you. I appreciate this about you, this about you, this about you, this about you. Right. And so I do like the high five of appreciation. Five appreciations, because generally what's happening when there's conflict in relationship is that someone's not feeling appreciated. It's a really big need for all of us to be appreciated all of the time, all little things. So however that's coming in your love language, thank you. Others are coming forward in your love language. Appreciation is huge when it comes to feeling gratitude and giving thanks. So especially when it's feeling like, a little sticky, you're like, I'm like, you know what? I really appreciate that you're always on time. You set the computer up, take the trash out, you fed the dog, you didn't, whatever, you know what I mean? You folded the laundry, like whatever that is, right? And you do 5 of them and you can just like put it out there. I appreciate this, right? When you're in a muddle, it's key.
It's very hard. I'm just saying, I've tried it. It's hard.
Yeah. But when we also fill that cup of appreciation regularly, when we're doing it all the time and we're living our satya, right? We're living our truth in asteya, right? In abundance of appreciation, then that cup is also already full. That was a good one.
Mm-hmm. And Daylon, I just saw what you put in the chat. We'll talk about the relation of satya to Manipura chakra, the 3rd chakra, when we talk about chakras. So anybody else wants to know, we'll have a chakra workshop and we'll talk about that. So we'll go back to that. I just saw that question. I just wanted to acknowledge that you wrote that in there. Asteya, any questions? Examples? Anything you want to share? Feeling complete? All right. We're going to go to our next yama, which is brahmacharya. Brahmacharya. And this is often translated, if you read the Yoga Sutras or other sort of texts like that, as abstinence.
Celibacy.
Celibacy is often how a classical form is translated. We like to translate it as being efficient with your energy.
My energy is sacred.
Your energy is sacred. Mm-hmm.
It's really about keeping your energetics sacred. It doesn't make sense for most of us to be celibate, right? Like we're not priests or nuns, we're not monks or holy men or holy people. So it doesn't make sense for us to be celibate, but what it
Well, for some people it might.
right, I said for us,
Oh, okay.
the householder, right, for the householder,
Yeah.
right?
Not for all people, but some people.
Right, for those people. So beyond those people, it doesn't make sense for us to necessarily abstain. But what it is more about is keeping our energetics sacred and understanding that your time, right? Your time is essentially like your biggest asset, if you will. And then sharing like your sacred space is imperative to how you're negotiating, or what am I trying to say? How you're negotiating or spending that time is uber important, especially out there in the world, right? So don't be a slut and keep your energy safe.
I think also like going back to the idea of like celibacy, and I think this kind of helps me kind of wrap my brain around it, is that it's the idea that any sort of pleasure you are seeking, anything, whether it's through food, through sex, through, I don't know, television,
scrolling through Instagram,
over exercising, social media, these are all things that are outside of you. And so because they are outside of you and you seek them outside of you, it is a bondage. It is another way I like to think of it, siphoning energy from you to it because you're seeking pleasure from it. Not that we're not saying good or bad or whatever, but it is your attention, your energy goes towards it because you are attached to it because it gives you pleasure. So brahmacharya is a practice in being aware of how you're seeking pleasure.
those dopamine hits.
Those dopamine hits, those, like, where is that for you? And are you doing it in a way that is not draining versus fulfilling, right? Like, how do we use food? Am I overeating just because it gives me pleasure? And then is that really what my body needs? Or am I scrolling constantly? Like, what is the habit? What's my intimate relationship? Who am I spending that very intimate time with? And
right.
so that's the brahmacharya.
Right. So that we're not disassociating. So we're not disassociating from what's really happening in our hearts. And it's really easy to disassociate and not keep your energetics sacred, right? And it requires so much more, I don't know if discipline is the right word, awareness and mindfulness to have your energy be focused, right? That's really what it is. And when you're like just letting your energy be all over the place, right? It's really easy to disassociate from what's really happening at the home of your heart, right? And we can use all of these things. We can use so many things, and there's so many things more and more available for us to disassociate with, so that we don't even notice that we're disassociating anymore, because what we're doing all the time then becomes a habit. So we don't think anything of it, I just remembered the other day, like, oh shoot, I've been sleeping with my phone next to me again, right? Not that I get up and immediately and scroll. That's not necessarily, I haven't fallen back into that habit, but I used to not ever sleep with my phone in my room at all, ever, completely off and not in the room. So it wasn't possible for me to pick it up, right? And that's how I broke that cycle of like being on my phone all the time, right? I literally work from my phone, right? 24/7, I'm always on. And so like, oh, I could use that excuse, like I'm working, right? Like I'm working. And so then I just have this blue light in my face all the time. And it just was like, oh, well, normal, I'm working. Like I'm working. I'm on my phone, I'm working.
I can relate to that.
Right. And I just use it as a disassociative tool to disassociate myself from what was happening, my children, my family, like whatever that was. Right. And I didn't realize that I was like disassociating because I was working. And I wasn't working all that time. I was looking at Instagram and Facebook and Pinterest and YouTube and whatever, and my photo or whatever, So yeah.
Yeah. And the idea, so Brahma is in Sanskrit means the head, the divine.
Yeah.
Right? Brahman, the divine. And Charya is the path. So really this idea of being aware of your energy usage
For your divine path.
for your own divine path. Because really we're always trying to work towards feeling fulfilled, feeling, enjoying this existence. And so when we're not practicing some sort of brahmacharya of being aware of energy expenditure, inputs, outputs, and where you're seeking pleasure and all those things around that, you're taking away from your own energy reserves in a way.
100%. And
Right?
that is really what it's about. Is the energetic reserves. I was having a conversation with Natalie, who's on this call right now, earlier today about that. Right. Because like she's married and we do a lot of ceremony. And when we're doing that, like how even then, right? Like if I'm shedding something, how my energetic reserve needs to either be built up to be able to share, like my cup needs to be full to share with my partner, and or if I'm letting go of something, like how I could take on their energy or release mine onto theirs, and how important and sacred that energetic reserve is. It's big. It's a really big deal. It's a really big deal. Thank you for understanding my bad dad jokes. But it really is. It really is. Our energy is sacred and it needs to be handled as such. So brahmacharya, the divine path.
Comments, questions, input? All right, brahmacharya.
Moving on.
So our fifth yama, which is, these restraints on how we can live in a relationship with the world and people around us, is aparigraha. And aparigraha is letting go. It's the ability to move on, move forward.
And it doesn't mean that it's about detachment. It's about not being attached to things, right? That things come and go. It doesn't mean that you don't care about things. It
doesn't mean you forget.
And it doesn't mean that you forget. But it means that when we, hold things, that we want to hold them with open hands, not with tight grips, right? When I hold things, relationships, my job, my whatever, with a tight grip, right? Like then it wants to be free. But if I just hold it with my open hand, right, then the bird will come and sit down. The bird needs to be free to fly away whenever it would like.
And it really is a sense of, like she used the word unschooling or deprogramming ourselves. Loss isn't a bad thing. It is a necessary part of the cycle. Instead of living this linear, like have it, don't have it, it's a part of this, like the heartbreak, the loss, the pain is part of a necessary, it's a part of the cycle. It's a part
It's a
of
cycle of life.
the cycle of life so that we can have new things come into our life, new relationships. I lost that relationship. I got a heartbreak in that relationship so that a better one can come to me.
Or the job, or the house, or the car, or the money, right? I see it as like a recycling, especially when we are dealing with like huge transformation in our lives, right? Whether we understand it or don't understand what's happening, but we'll have a huge transformation. And that could stir up some fear, right? It can stir up a lot of fear when things are changing. And that's that.
It's uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable, right? The only constant is change, right? The only constant is change. And if we can soften into that, then it becomes so much easier to allow the change to happen. Because the truth is, there is a new job, there is a new relationship, there is a new house, there is a new car. Like, because when we live from infinite abundance in all of those things, then we understand that like we're going to lose things to get new ones, right? And I can just give my clothes away. I don't need to try to sell them, right? I just went through all of my clothes and I'm like, I have nothing left, right? And that's freaking great, because what it means is that like I get a, number one, I don't have to think about what I'm wearing because I only got like 5 outfits left. Number two, it means that my closet's going to get full of new clothes that are going to match me better, right? My $5 t-shirt. But I did get this new t-shirt for you today.
And a huge part of the unpacking, right, the letting go, is so that you can now fill it with what you choose to fill it with.
Right. And what's going to energetically match you at that point in time, because that thing, person, place, or thing doesn't match you anymore, right? It's not an energetic match, right? And it's not that it's not going to hurt. It's not that
you forget. You like you let go of the stories of it.
Yeah.
The attachment to the story in your head about whatever it was. And now you can just be left with the wisdom and the lessons that you learned. And now, as you move forward in life with this pack, you've filled it with the lessons you've learned and the things you want to take with you as you move on and you move forward. And that's a parigraha. It's like, I'm willing to let go of the story.
And we get so stuck in the story of like, oh, this happened to me and then this happened to me. And like, we want to victimize ourselves. I know, like, for sure, I lived as a victim for a very long time. The story, right? Like the story of what happened to me in my 20s. I had 3 kids in 3 years when I was 21, right? And like, I was in an abusive relationship and right? Like, and I got stuck there, right? For a while. And now I forget, I forget that Stella even existed, right? And it's not that my story is not worth being told, because it's a beautiful story, right? About like resurrection and like being able to rebuild my life, and how many times I've been able to rebuild my life. This is rather beautiful, but it doesn't mean that like I live in that attachment of and keeping that story, right? Oh, well, that happened to me when, so therefore I'm like this. I'm attached to that. Instead, I get to take all these like really beautiful things that I learned, put in my backpack and move on.
Parigraha. Woo, that's some powerful medicine.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody move your shoulders, let it go. Let it go.
Oh God.
And a big part of all these things that we're talking about is that like, it sometimes we can get so heady about all of this, right? You're like, whoa. And the asana part, that limb of yoga is so helpful because not the only way, but a way to help process all of this is through the body. Because this is kind of the form we've given. This is where we store energy and our tissues remember things. And so just remember, I'm just saying, like, as we were talking, I was just started, your mind is like running, right? You got the stories and you got the things, and just know that your body, it's a processing machine. It really is. And the asana, the things that you do on your mat in yoga class is, it's workout and blah, 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 all those physical things, but like mentally and emotionally, it's a way to process what's up here. Just let it flow through, that's how you'll find the next best step. Let it flow through, let it flow. Aparigraha. Quick review. Yamas. We got Ahimsa, be kind. Satya,
speak your truth.
Asteya,
Give thanks.
Brahmacharya,
Be sacred with your energy.
Aparigraha.
Moving on. Let it go.
To kind of see how those guidelines, observances can help you be in relationship with the world around you and others. Those are the yamas. Questions? Comments? Concerns? Input? Radical self-love is the answer.
Always.
Sometimes you just gotta move it around. Don't let it stay in there, guys. Let it out. Take a big breath. I'm serious. I'm serious.
I love it.
Okay. Everybody feeling good? All right. We'll talk about the niyamas.
Or the
Niyamas.
because these ones are about yourself, right? This is the self-care piece, right? Again, is like this huge, like big keyword that's like up today. Oh, self-care, my self-care practices, self-care, 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 right? Self-care is not taking a bath. It's not washing your hair. It's not, I don't know, like going to do these like basic things. It's not drinking a green juice. This is not self-care. Those are things that your body actually needs, right? Or wants, because I guess, right, like we just need to wash up every once in a while, right? We don't need a bubble bath and beautiful soap.
Speak for yourself.
I think I don't, yeah, of course I do. And right, but self-care is really about how you are interacting with your own heart space. It's about all of those yamas that we spoke of, but really the self-care is so much deeper than that. Because when we're operating from this infinite space inside of ourselves, life just gets so much easier, so much easier. And we've been schooled to think that our lives need to be hard. And I don't mean that there's not going to be hard work, right? There is some work to do. Like things are going to hurt and things aren't always going to be ridiculously easy, but they can be simple and we can do hard things. Like we're capable of that. We're super resilient, super resilient. So the first one is, the first niyama is about keeping things clean.
Saucha.
Cleanliness is godliness. So our environment, our home, our clothes, our bubble baths and smelly soaps.
It's about being aware of what you put in and on your body.
Everywhere. Everywhere.
Saucha.
So that's like the program, what you're programming yourself with, what you're thinking, right? So when I say program, like, yes, I mean like the television screen, but also like what I'm programming myself with in my own thoughts, right? Like, oh, like, I don't know, I'm fat today, right? Like, am I programming myself with that? Is that how I'm programming myself? Or am I like, wow, you know, like this body's really great. I joke about it when I teach yoga class all the time. I'm like, oh, you're the best leg, right? I'm like, oh, you're the best knee. Oh, you're the best arm. And like, I joke, right? Like I say it in this like really loving, jokey, sort of goofy way, because that is sort of, you know, that is who I am. But really it's like the truth, right? It's like, this is the best leg, the best right leg that I ever do remember in this lifetime. Right. And if I talk to it like that, like it's going to like that better. Right. Like you understand that we talk to plants and water and like all of these things, but like, how am I like keeping it clean with myself?
The mind and body are connected. There's not one without the other.
Keeping my environment clean, what I'm watching, like
your body and your mind are influenced by your environment. We know that by, you know, children and the way children are raised. We know that by animals and seeing how animals, or even a plant, right? Its environment matters.
I choose like the restaurants, places that I go to. Somebody was asking me recently and I was like, well, I don't go out to eat really. And if I do, there's like 3 places I go. Number one, I'm highly, what's a good word?
Picky.
I was looking for another word besides picky.
Sorry.
What?
Suspicious?
Suspicious?
Suspicious or suspect?
No, I'm not suspicious, JV. I am, well, maybe. That wouldn't be the word that I would choose, but I know why you would say that. I'm highly, I like saucha. I like my food clean and I like my environment clean, right? So my choice is to not get a pizza and beer where there are televisions on, right? Because I don't want to be programmed with background noise. I don't want, there's no reason for me to do that. I feel strongly about this. There's no, I don't want that in program in my head. I had a lot of programming. I got to unschool myself, and being in a restaurant where there are TVs on, I'm not doing that. I go to a restaurant to eat, to put something beautiful inside of my body, to nourish my body, and to talk to my friend, right, over good food. And if there's a television on, it makes it very difficult for me to do that, right? Because I'm like squirrel, 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 squirrel. And I might be listening to some like jibber jabber from someone on that screen out there, right? So like, that's part of how I keep myself clean. That's part of how I keep myself clean in my life. Right. I also feel like I do have a responsibility to like stay as clean as possible for my clients, for my life's work and who I am. Right. So still trying to think of a better word than picky.
You're not picky,
but I am picky. But I'm choosy. I'm discerning. I'm very discerning about what I pull into my environment. Mm-hmm. I'm very discerning, and I have very high standards for the food that I eat, the people that I'm around, the programs that I listen to, the music that I listen to, right? Like we've been in class, Jessi, and I've had a song on, and then I realized that they were, oh, I know, it was like, she works hard for the money. And then I was like, wait a minute, I'm not programming myself with, I work hard for my money. No. And I deleted it from my playlist because even though I like that song, I'm not going to forget that song, right? But I'm not trying to program myself with particular. Yes, I'm particular. I don't want to program myself with, I work hard for my money. I don't want to work hard. I want someone to just write me some checks for no apparent reason with lots of zeros, right? So that's what, like, keeping it clean, we can really get into. Like,
Cynthia, do you have something you wanted to add?
Oh, no, I was gonna suggest the word discriminating for Stella, but discerning was also very good in particular.
yeah, perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it. I was
I
like,
love all these words.
because again, conscious languaging, like I'm very conscious about the spells that I'm casting with my words. Right. So I don't want to be suspect, JB. I mean, it's a good word, but I don't want to be like, I don't want to put out that I'm suspect or I'm suspicious or that I'm like picky, right? Like all of those have more of like a heavier feeling around them. But if I'm like discerning, right? I'm very aware and I'm those words, it makes it easier for me. And
also, so going back, you know, and Sauch, a lot of these niyamas, right? They're going to be so personal to you.
yeah. 100%.
So I just want to put, you know, like their awareness practices.
Yeah, you don't need to be like me.
Right? They're not,
Please don't.
there's not like one saucha that's better than the other saucha. You know, like in that realm of, you know, like going out to eat, for example, I could see, let's say like differences here, you know, like I could see the, you know, I understand them not wanting to have TVs and not having, but sometimes, you know, like my dad loves going to watch football at the pizza parlor and drinking beers, and I want to go hang out with my dad. So that practice of, you know, like I'm going to pick and choose. I'm going to be aware of it. I'm going to be aware of why I'm choosing to do this. And it doesn't make it good or bad.
Yeah, 100%.
It doesn't make it good or bad. And and it's okay.
Totally.
And it's also okay to be in the situation, to be aware of it, and you are still in control. Because I think sometimes it gets into this realm of like super hypersensitivity that can be a little debilitating when you're trying to live your life. And there's also nothing wrong with being sensitive. So it's, you know, but I think it is something I just needed to say that, you know, like you're in charge. The Niyamas practice is you get to be discerning the way you need to be discerning, and take a big breath and it's going to be okay.
The less flaws in the diamond.
The less flaws in a diamond, the more valuable it is. Oh, good. That's for Saucha. Be your own diamond.
Yeah, be your own diamond, be your own gemstone for sure. Yeah, I appreciate that you said that, because it's not.
Yeah, the way I like to clean my house and my room might be different than the way my sister likes to clean her house and her room. And that's okay. Right? It doesn't make her way wrong or my way. That's not what this is about.
Yeah. There's no judgment or attachment or like good or bad either way, right? It's just about like how we eat, how we individually get to clean our own.
Being aware of, being aware of your environment, being aware of what you put in, what you put on your body. What are the ingredients in the lotion that you're using?
Do you care?
Maybe you don't care. That's
You're like,
okay.
I love the way it smells. It makes me feel smooth. I am not looking at the ingredient list. Just put it on and have a great time. Because at the end of the day, I will say with this, at the end of the day, what's most important is that it makes you happy. right? What's most important at the end of the day is that it makes you feel good and that you're happy. It does not matter what the substance is, period, across the board for whatever that is. You know, if eating Cheetos and M&Ms makes you the happiest on the freaking planet, then you should have that 100%. Lemon heads, right? If lemon heads make you happy, you should be eating lemon heads.
Yeah.
Because that's the energetics that you're putting inside of you, right? And ultimately, like living from your heart and being happy is the cleanest thing you can do. Because if you're happy, right? If you're coming from a place of like love and joy, contentment, then that's what translates, period.
And the yogic practice, living yoga, is just asking you to be a little more conscious about, be aware of it. You want to eat that? Okay, just be aware that you're eating that.
Yeah.
You know, being aware of when you go on autopilot and how often you go on auto. You're going to go on autopilot sometimes. That's just the way our brains work. But being aware of, oh, wow, I was just on autopilot. And the more you become aware of when you drop into that kind of like automated programming, was that programming what you wanted to program, or was that programming something you got somewhere else? Or did you learn it? Or, you know, being just aware, like inquiring within. Is that our next one? Oh, not yet. Okay.
No.
Saucha. Cleanliness. Be clean.
Cleanliness is
Be aware of what you
definitely-
put in and on your body and around your body. Questions, comments? Okay, our next niyama is how to be chill.
Santosha, or contentment. It's from contentment, being content with what is, accepting what is, that what we love can then, that what is, that can then become what we love. And then we get happy. And then we can have joy and bliss. But you don't get joy and bliss and happiness if you are not content, although you could if you were disassociating. But then it's not true happiness. It's not true joy, because you weren't content in the first place with what was or with what is, right? And then we've, yeah, really not more simple than that, I guess. So when you love what is becomes what you love. Because we've applied we've applied the yamas of like not being attached and living from abundance and being kind.
Being aware of your energy inputs and outputs.
Yeah.
And just now you can just be with what is.
And allowing it, and just allowing it. So much of our time, we don't allow the moment to complete itself, right? And we don't let the thing, the relationship, the job, the moment to complete itself. Or even on the mat, like I'm in one pose and then like I'm like trying to move to the next pose before I even completed that pose. Right? And we're just like, let that moment settle, be content with it, and then move on.
And this goes back to when we're living in our heads, right? And in our heads, we're ruminating, we're obsessing, we're wanting, we're in the story versus being present and just being here with what is. Santosha, how to be chill.
And this is really where that like wants and needs comes in too, right? Like, I don't know if I really want to do that thing, but I'm going to do that thing, right? Because, you know, I don't know, if I could just eat chocolate and green juice all day, every day, and like not work or exercise, and I could just sit here, which I'm pretty sure is, possible, but highly improbable. You know what I mean? That I could like feel healthy and happy if I just like hung out here on my couch, like eating potato chips, watching some guy at TV all day. Yes. I'm pretty into it. But I'm cool with the things that I get to do in my life to help
And
myself
so-
move forward. Yeah.
Going back to like how empowering is that? And so instead of handing your enjoyment of the moment over to something else, someone else, ruminating, obsessing, handing my energy out to these other things, I can be empowered in the moment to just be here. Santosha. So it's the opposite of restlessness. Because if I'm restless, there's always outside. There's all these other things. So Santosha is this practice of, and it's not a resignation either. We're not resigning. I'm not saying that like everything's rainbows and puppies. And so I'm just, that's not what it is, but it's a choice. It's an empowered choice to be present.
To even be okay with not being okay.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm not okay right now, but I'm okay that I'm not okay right now. It's okay to not be okay. I'm just going to be not okay right now.
It has helped me a ton. I deal with a lot of physical pain from injuries, from playing sports my whole life. And I go through flare-ups. And I'm in this process right now in my life of healing myself from, body, why do you keep doing this? Really. And how can I listen and be present and breathe and just be with, okay, my body is processing. How can I just listen and let my body do its thing and trust that my body is, so instead of getting restless and angry and resentful and worried and getting into the story about it and just be with it. It doesn't necessarily feel good, but it's better than adding in the layers of
Why did this happen?
Why?
How am I
Blah.
taking care of myself? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Santosha. Question, anybody got anything? Feeling chill? Feeling chill? Feeling content?
It's a nice place to be.
All right, next one.
It's about going deep. It's about going really deep. It's
You
about
ready, guys?
ready for this
We're
big
going
word.
deep.
It's called svadhyaya. Sva means self, or is like the root of self. Svadhyaya. So it's to study ourselves. And as yogis, we make a commitment to continue to do the work, to unravel ourselves, to open ourselves, to not close our hearts.
To be a forever student, to always be learning.
Yeah.
To see the contrast and the pain as opportunities to learn and grow. Svadhyaya. Like everything is teaching me. I can learn from all of this.
Yeah, it's all happening for us all the time, not to us. It's all happening for our own soul's evolution.
And when you do the svadhyaya, the self-study, it helps you learn, like, fill in these other things of saucha, what does purity mean to me? What does cleanliness mean to me? What are the practices that help me with a parigraha, how to let things go? What is my brahmacharya? How can I be, so the self-study feeds into so much of these, what we've been talking about.
Yeah. Really knowing yourself, know thyself 100%, because when you know yourself, right, then those other things are going to be so much less influential, right? You're going to be able to stay so much more centered and grounded, so that if somebody else is doing something, saying something, whatever, it's not going to trigger you, because I know what my truth is, and my truth is this, and I have a sense and or know that I'm being judged by someone else, right? Or something else or whatever. But like when I'm in my truth, because I've studied myself and I know that this is to be good for me, then it's okay. Right? And then it doesn't bother me to be, I don't know, be something else, be somewhere else,
And being okay with being that student. Like, you don't have to know everything.
right.
Part of the yoga practice of Svadhyaya is I really don't know anything. And
I know nothing.
I know nothing.
I
And I
don't
am
know
just a
anything.
student of this life.
Always.
And I'm just doing the best I can. So I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to do, I'm going to research the things that I'm interested in. I'm going to, I'm just a student. And so the world is my opportunity to learn.
This is school. So we say that the earth and being here is school, right? This is the earth school. We came here to like go to the university and figure this out. Always learning, always open. And it doesn't mean that you need to like bombard yourself with an overabundance of information, right? That can be really easy to do too.
Because that wouldn't be kind.
Because that wouldn't be kind, right?
That wouldn't leave you feeling santosha.
Content.
You gotta think of all these things. And that wouldn't be brahmacharya, like living in a moderation. If you were to overly study, right? That's not a practice of brahmacharya, being efficient or moderate with your energy.
Just means we're not going to be like Popeye and be like, well, I am what I am. And it's like, oh, well, let me look. Do you like that? I am what I am. It's like, I am what I am. And, oh gosh, like, let me see what else is underneath there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Let me see what is, maybe there is something else underneath there. And maybe there's not something underneath there, but I'm open to the possibility. It's about keeping your heart open and your mind open to the endless possibilities of studying yourself and just really knowing who you are, right?
You're always growing through it. You're not just going through it.
That's a good one. Yeah, I don't know. Good. I'm growing through it. Not
Always. It doesn't end. There's no end
and
to
there
this
is
life.
no end.
There's
no end.
There's no end. There's no
Never,
finish line.
Ever end.
You're never done.
Ever.
Svadhyaya.
We just keep studying ourselves. That's why too, you can go to like, again, on the mat, like I've done Warrior 2 500,000 times in my life, or I go to do it today and it's different than when I do it in the evening, or it's different than when I do it tomorrow. It's just different, right? And I get to just continue to study that same thing, right? With an open mind, with an open heart, like with a new perspective, with like a fresh look, right? We call it beginner's mind, that I'm always looking at it as if it is new. Study.
Svadhyaya.
Yeah, making a commitment to doing that, making a commitment to continuing to grow.
How do we feel? Everybody okay with that one? Self-study. All right.
Well, obviously, you are here.
You're here. You're doing it right
So-
now.
Yeah. So perfectly aligned with the next one is like, I want to celebrate you.
Tapas.
Right?
Well, you
Like
skip
some-
tapas.
oh, shit.
Tapas. We went over, but see, there's no order, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, bless me.
Because we got to end with Ishvarapana.
Got it,
So
got it.
tapas
Right.
is
Not the
not the appetizers, but spelled the same way.
T-A-P-A-S.
Confusing. You see how that can be confusing. Tapas. It's having an enthusiasm for what you're doing. It's how do you stay engaged with what you're doing? How do you have this fire? How do you keep your fire lit?
Yeah.
Really?
And it's a practice to stay inspired, right? Number one, like for yourself. When you are able to inspire yourself all of the time, right? Then you will automatically inspire people around you. And this is like why I frequently and often say that our job on the planet is to take care of ourselves. And when we do that, then we are doing that for other people around us. And it is not anyone else's job to inspire you, because then you're looking outside for that, right? It's your job to inspire yourself. No one can do that for you. No one can put your shoes on and get you to the gym. No one can roll your yoga mat out. No one can feed you healthy food. No one can help you think healthy thoughts. You get to stay inspired yourself and finding things that feel good for you. And we get to have this like responsibility for inspiring ourselves. And then when I go hang out with my friend, it's super fun, right? Because I'm not looking for outside validation from someone else or something else, because I already feel inspired. So if, nobody wants to hang out with me today, like that's great because I have plenty to do. Right? Because I got to study myself. I got I got a project, I got a book, I got whatever, right? That inspires me. And staying committed to keeping the fire, right? The fire in your belly and the fire in your sacred heart to keep yourself alive. Because when that fire goes out, it's really hard to relight, right? So if the fire's on, a nice warm hearth, right? Nice warm hearth. Then it's really easy to turn on a little bit, and then it's easy to let it come down a little bit, but we don't want it to go out all the way.
Keep the pilot lit.
Right. We got to keep the pilot light on. Right. We want to keep the pilot light on.
So there is a sense of, discipline here.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Right? It's a discipline to partake in practices, self-care practices that light you up. It's discipline to whatever that is. Get on the yoga mat.
We should rename this like Get Lit.
Get lit, right? Like it's discipline to show up and when you feel depleted or low, it's that discipline to be like, okay, what do I need right now? Where's my tapas? Have I been partaking in a practice that feeds my fire?
Right. It's easier to stay in shape than to get in shape.
That's a good one.
100%. Right. So we make that commitment to stay in shape, right? Our body, our mind, our spirit, our souls, we make that commitment as yogis to stay in shape ourselves. Right. And that is what tapas is. It is the discipline to keep doing it. Because what'd you say the other day? An ant can eat an elephant one bite at a time.
That's a good, yeah.
I was like, oh, that's so good. But we keep that commitment to taking one bite at a time.
Mm-hmm. Tapas.
And that's what tapas are, is this commitment to continue to get on the mat, to continue to read the book, to continue to whatever, not let it the dishes pile up or
Yeah,
whatever.
to
that
do
is,
the things you need to do
to
so
stay
that
inspired.
so you can stay inspired and engaged, so you can stay present. Right? There's things we discipline. Do so you gotta and enjoying the work that you do. Like what Stella was saying, I don't have to do it. I get to do it. I get to do the dishes because if I don't do the dishes, then there's just a pile of dirty dishes that sits there, and then the flies come, and then I don't have any clean dishes. But I get to do the dishes because it feels good to have the dishes done
And be clean.
and be
Saucha.
clean, saucha, because I'm practicing saucha. It's like those little things. All right, tapas. Now we can move on.
Okay,
Any
shoot.
questions about tapas? Engage with those practices that fuel your fire. Be open to new practices too. It's not always going to be the same thing either. Different as we move through different seasons of our lives and of the year, and it can change.
Right. There are different things that are going to inspire us at different times.
Mm-hmm.
100%. And that's totally allowed to change.
All right.
And now we get to celebrate you.
So the last niyama, Ishvara Pranidhana.
It's a big word.
Ishvara Pranidhana.
It's about heaven on earth. That's really what Pranidhana is.
Celebrate good times. Come on.
That's always about celebrating yourself. Like I talked about earlier, oh, this is the best me I ever did know, right? Or whatever that is. It's about celebrating and being committed to understanding that you can create heaven or you can create hell for yourself at any given moment. So it's the commitment to create your heaven all the time, or as frequently enough as possible, right? And that is within celebrating yourself, right? Which is different than being grateful for the things around you. It's being wow, I'm celebrating. I did a good job today. I showed up for this awesome How to Live Your Yoga, Yamas and Niyamas class with people that I don't know, right? I asked a question, I typed in, I took myself off, I made myself a good meal, I got on the mat, I did the thing that I said I was going to do, right? I gave myself a promise and I completed that, right? So my tapas were ignited, I gave myself a discipline and I did it. So now I get to celebrate myself. I get to celebrate myself. Wow, Stella, you're doing a good job. Look at where you were a year ago or 6 months ago. And you've come far. And when we stay in that mode all the time of appreciating and celebrating ourselves, so much easier to celebrate everyone and everything around us. Right? So much easier to be happy on Jesse's birthday when I've been celebrating myself every day. And it doesn't come from then again a place of falsity. And again, I know I mentioned spiritual bypassing before. That really can happen a lot in the spiritual community. And it's not about the rainbows and the puppies. It's about giving ourselves our own little trophies of appreciation.
And I think also it's a sense of surrender, right? You can celebrate when you've surrendered to, there's intelligence everywhere. There's intelligence in my body. There's intelligence in my environment, right? It all kind of goes around, but then also the surrender to the uncertainty. I'm going to learn a lot in all this uncertainty. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know so I'm going to enjoy my time and celebrate my time with who I'm with, because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Ishvara Pranidhana, I'm celebrating now because there's uncertainty.
I say that we wake up every day like it's Christmas. What if we all woke up every day Like there were presents everywhere and we had no idea what we were going to get. Do you know what I mean? Like how exciting would life be for all of us if we remembered that every day was like Christmas? Because the truth is there are presents everywhere. There are gifts everywhere. And we have no idea what we're going to get. Right? So everything is just like this beautiful surprise all of the time. People are always like, why are you always laughing, Stella? And I'm like, life is beautiful and it's funny and it's messy and I love all of it. I love all of it. Like it's Christmas all of the time, every day like Christmas. And the thing is, with all of these is when we're practicing them all of the time, it becomes who we are. It becomes who we are.
You become a yogi.
Right. So you do just suddenly notice that like I get on my yoga mat, I'm taking care of myself, I'm speaking my truth. I'm being kind all the time. I'm not attached to the outcome. I'm able to just like, show up for myself all of the time, and be content. And so it's not something that then I'm even grasping for, because these little baby steps of like this celebration of my life have just become it. Right. And so Delon asked a question about like, what is spiritual bypassing? Spiritual bypassing is when you're like, oh, okay, like, I know that happened, but it's no big deal. And it doesn't really affect me because I am such a happy person. Right. And like the most simple way. It's about like putting like really thick rose-colored glasses on. And sometimes that's necessary. But it's not about ignoring things, right? So being a yogi doesn't mean, and using all these principles means that you have boundaries. And when your boundaries are crossed, you're allowed and it's necessary for you to speak your truth, to say that you didn't like that. We say that you don't need to like everything or everyone, but you get to love them and you get to speak your truth. So that's a way not to spiritual bypass, is by loving it and speaking your truth. If you just pretend like you love and you like everything, you're spiritually bypassing. So if I'm like celebrating things that I'm not really happy about, then I'm spiritual bypassing. I'm like, oh yeah, that's okay. Then I'm a people pleaser and I'm just like letting that go. That's spiritual bypassing. People pleasing is spiritually bypassing. Right? I was a professional spiritual bypasser for a while. I was like, oh, that's okay. Because I was just out to like please everyone around me. Right? But when I'm authentically celebrating myself, then I don't need to celebrate other people for no apparent reason. Right? Which is what people pleasers do. As an example of like spiritual bypassing. Right? I just made everything be okay no matter how it was. Like, instead of being like, oh, I don't really like that. And it's because I didn't know how to celebrate myself. Right? Really authentically celebrate myself. And like really fall in love with as messy and as spacey and like I'm just in the middle of a thought, I'm all right. And I just like fell in love with those parts of myself. I have to fall in love with myself and then be like, well, you know what I'm really good at is like being super spacey and forgetting or saying I forget whatever. And you know what I mean? Like, not authentically celebrating myself. Like, oh, I'm really good at this.
So the niyamas
Or the
Niyamas Saucha, keep it clean, inside, outside, environment, purity. Santosha,
Keep it chill, stay content, acceptance,
tapas, how to stay inspired, disciplined, to do the things that help you feel good, to do those practices, whatever that is, you know, what is your tapas?
what lights your fire?
What lights your fire? What keeps your fire lit?
Svadhyaya,
Svadhyaya.
studying yourself and going deep. And Ishvara Pranidhan or Ishvara Pranidhana, which is
Celebrate.
celebration that heaven is here on earth
Heaven's a choice you get to make.
right now. It's choice. Love is a choice.
Questions, comments, input?
Turn your microphone off and say hello.
Here, we'll stop recording. That, something like that.